Oh, we bought the trailer and we took it to Detroit to visit there. Went to Spring Arbor with it to visit the family there, and then headed out for Cherry Point, North Carolina. Pulling it with a 52 Dodge. But I had an excellent pair of overload springs on it and a special hitch welded to the frame of the car. So I had a good rig, and the trailer had electric brakes on one set of wheels and no brakes on the other set of wheels. This was ideal because if I had brakes on all four wheels, then it would skid sideways. But since I was braking with two wheels and had two wheels take me straight ahead, then I didn't have the trouble that some guys had with four-wheel braking. So we started out on the Pennsylvania Turnpike from Jackson, and everything went fine. We cruised at about 55 miles an hour, and we came off in the mountains at the Breezewood exit, heading for Richmond. About that time, I began to hear noises in the back of the car, growling noises. So we stopped at a Dodge dealer's in Richmond. I don't know whether we did all this in one day or not, I can't remember. Anyway, he inspected the differential and said, it's wearing out, but it will last you till you get to Florida.
You mean North Carolina?
Yeah, to North Carolina, rather. So off we went. And we get to North Carolina, check in at the base, no room at the base trailer park. So we went to a little old dinky trailer park about 4 miles east of town, just off US 90. And everything was all grass, but it was sand. And with this Dodge, I could park the trailer because I didn't dig in, because I could put the power on slowly with the fluid drive. The Jeep that parked the trailers had all kinds of trouble parking trailers, but I parked the trailer myself. It was a pleasant spot, big pine trees, and friendly people. But it was there a bad event happened. We had a kitty. This was before chlorine. We had a kitty. And there was a family living near us, a couple of trailers away, that had a greyhound. The greyhound had caught the rabbits, so he was just a pet. And the little girls, Kay and Sandy, I don't think Rick was in on it, were teasing the dog with the kitty. But the dog lunged and grabbed the kitty and gave it a shake and broke its neck. That was the end of the kitty. And we had to have a funeral and dig a hole and put the kitty in it. But those little girls, they learned to talk Southern because they went to a Southern school. They went to a country school. I don't know whether Sandra wasn't old enough to go to school, I don't think, but just Kay went to school, and she became a regular Southerner in her talk. I don't know what the family did while I was in at the base. Mother probably read and helped the kids play and so on. Oh, I know what Rick liked. Before we went to when did we pick up? He had a station wagon, and not a station wagon. He had a fire wagon. You know, when you pedal with your feet, just his size, a red fire wagon with a bell on it and all that. So he enjoyed that, running around the trailer park with his little wagon. He loved that little wagon, that fire wagon. So we had it there, and Mother must have read to them, or what, I don't know. I was at the base. I started in a radar squadron. I told them, look, I'm an electronics man. I want to further my experience in electronics, so they put me in the radar squadron. I was a radio officer, I guess, is what I was. But it was there that I was hanging around the office too much, and a letter came through. We got to send 2 men to the School of Disciplinary Procedures. So I had to go away. I think it was 2 weeks up Norfolk to the School of Disciplinary Procedures, and there I learned to be a lawyer, military lawyer type thing.
In the JAG Corps?
I don't know. I don't know what our connection was with JAG. No, I wasn't. I was a squadron legal officer. That's what I was. I had to handle all the problems that Marines had with the civilians and with each other. That is, all I did was handle the paperwork, do the investigations, write the reports, giving it to the commanding officer, who then decided what to do with the culprit. And I certainly ran into some terrible cases, especially in the Marines, the older enlisted Marines. One was so bad I don't even want to talk about it. That was quite an experience. And then the word came through, if you're a naval officer and you're a pilot, I had my wings in, of course, then you got to fly, and you got to go to flight training. So I joined the flight training squadron for attack aircraft, called VMAT. And our training aircraft was a combat aircraft, the AD Skyraider, which was the workhorse in Korea with propeller-driven planes, because I was eventually on my way to Korea. So I learned to do all kinds of stuff in the Skyraider. It's a big, powerful plane. It had 3,300 horsepower, and it would do anything in the way of aerobatics, go straight up. And then it had dive brakes that extended out of the fuselage to limit your speed in a dive. Very effective dive brakes. They were kept the plane stable. So I did air-to-air gunnery in that, as well as air-to-ground stuff. So it was quite an experience in the attack squadron. In the meantime, a spot opened on the trailer park, so I moved the family into the trailer park. I think they were in the country about 6 weeks or so, maybe 2 months. In fact, I think we got into the trailer park in the summer, after the school year was over. So then the kids had more military kids to play with. And they had to get used to the military discipline. I mean, you don't do this and you don't do that. You don't run all over. And there we went to a Baptist church. And one of the first Sundays when we were out in the country before we moved to the base, we visited a country Baptist church. And everything was okay except the porch. On the ground, all around the porch, was just piles of cigarette butts. So we're here, let's go in. First thing they did was ask Pauline to play the piano, because the piano player hadn't shown up. So we sat up towards the front, and over at the front row, by the window, sat an old guy chewing tobacco, and he spit out the window. That made us question whether we liked Baptists or not. So we, on the base, we went to the base Sunday service, and that wasn't very good. It was very formal. So then we went to the local Methodist church, and they were very modern. Their sermons were, well, they didn't talk about Jesus. It was do-it-yourself kind of thing. So we said enough of that, and we went to the Baptist church, and that turned out to be pretty good. The only person that smoked was a Sunday school teacher who went out between church and Sunday school and smoked his pipe. But that was all right. And there we were asked to join the choir, and I was asked to join the Baptist Brotherhood organization. So I was a good Baptist. And Mother was a good Sunday school teacher, except she got into trouble once. She, in trying to tell the story of Naaman, who had leprosy, she said Naaman was the man, a leader. He would say, like the base commander here, he was in charge of his outfit, like the base commander. He had leprosy. So the little kids construed this, and they went home and told their parents that the Sunday school teacher said that the base commander had leprosy. So Mother had that to deal with, and I guess she got it straightened out all right. But she was scared at trial because the commanding officer's Jeep came to the trailer park with a CO in it. She thought sure he was going to stop at our trailer, but he didn't. I guess nothing became of it. But we enjoyed that church there. The pastor was a retired missionary. He was a good, solid Christian. We were in the choir. We had one problem at the choir. Every so often, the choir practice date was on the same day as the women's and the men's secret society. What was the name of it?
The Masons?
The women had their section of it, and the men had theirs.
Did you say it was a Baptist Brotherhood?
No, this was a.
Was it the Masons, Daddy?
Yeah, it was the Masons. It was the Masons. Yeah, I can't remember what they called the women's group.
Star.
What?
It's called Star or something like that.
Yeah. So we would end up at church we'd be the only ones there just to practice in the choir. But the pastor was real good, except he preached against smoking one time, the use of tobacco. So the board got hold of him and said, don't you ever mention smoking again. Of course, we were in North Carolina where tobacco was a big crop. Besides that, they all had to have it. But there we made friends with a lot of enlisted people in church. But you weren't supposed to collaborate or
Fraternize.
with enlisted. Officers weren't supposed to socially mix with enlisted. But we had enlisted friends. And officers too, who were in the church service. So we had two groups of friends, officers and enlisted, who were Christians. So what happened to us there was after a while, I got orders to Korea. And I didn't tell Pauline. And there was a mistake because one of the other women told her how sorry they were that her husband had to go to Korea, and I hadn't told her I was going to Korea. So Pauline jumped on me. How come you didn't tell me? Why didn't you tell me? So when we came to leave, the enlisted people in the church gave us a going away party. And the officer group in the church gave us a going away parties. So we had two parties. So I had to, got my orders finally, and I had to board the airplane at Tampa, head for the West Coast, leaving my, how did I do it? I pulled the trailer to Florida and set it up in the Oak Park trailer camp in Florida on the edge of the city. Set her all up, nice, cozy spot under the trees. And there was Grandma and Grandpa Jones to help her take care of the kids. So I left her in a good situation. And I get out to the West Coast. Oh, the kids were so sad about me leaving. Mother was sad too, but she didn't dare let on how sad she was. Jackie, I just found a letter the other day that Mother wrote to me about the kids. And how sad they were. Even Ricky was sad. I don't want my daddy to go away. And he looked at a picture of me, and he said, is that daddy in there? Why doesn't he come out? I want to kiss him. Because he was just a little shaver then. So with repressed tears, we parted, and I got on the commercial airlines to go to Korea. Went to Marine Corps Air Station El Toro again, and into the BOQ, the Bachelor Officers Quarters, waiting for orders. They didn't come through, and they didn't come through. In the meantime, there were rumors of peace talks going on. So Grandpa Jones was praying about it all the time. He said, she's not going, he's not going to have to go. Because that was a vicious war over there. Many, many pilots. The bigger percentage of the pilots got killed in Korea than they did in World War II. The percentage of the pilots flying combat. So they canceled my orders. Instead of assigning us to the East Coast again, they assigned us to the West Coast. So I had to hitch a ride on an airplane, military plane, back to Cherry Point, take the bus to Florida, hitch up the trailer again, grease all the bearings and get it all set to go. How I handled that big thing, I don't know. And we started for California with that big thing. Did you see it? I think you saw a picture of it. And it was a good trip. There's a couple funny things happened. One was we stopped along the road at lunchtime to cook lunch. And I was checking over the hitch and the tires and everything, and Mother hollered out the door, "Daddy, the toaster won't work." What is the matter with the toaster? She'd forgotten that we weren't plugged in any place, and so the toaster wouldn't work. We got along. And then we had no trouble pulling that trailer until close to home in Tampa. We had to go on US 90, what went right to the middle of Tampa. And there's a long sloping hill with a stop sign, a red light, at halfway up the hill. With that heavy trailer, of course it had all the belongings in it then. I stopped, but I couldn't get it started to go again. just didn't. The clutch was slipping. The fluid drive was slipping. So I had to clamp on the brakes and call for a wrecker. And they pulled us to the top of the hill, and on we went. I don't remember much about the incident, except we had to have a wrecker. I don't know if they did it free or what. No problems all the way, even in the mountains, which we're lucky because if we'd gotten stopped on the hill, we couldn't have got started again. One thing was very difficult. We came up over a ridge, and there the road went straight ahead, and it turned and went up the side of the mountain, cut into the side of the mountain. And halfway up that stretch of maybe a third of a mile was a truck burning. So we charged along, and just as happened, when we got there, nobody was coming in the other lane, so we pulled around the truck and got. But we ran into some awful stretch of roads under construction. This was all rock, because it was in the mountains. Awful, awful jolting. And we got to our camp where we parked for the night, and the plumbing leaked. In that awful heat, I had to get down under the sink and find the leak. And a joint had vibrated loose. So we get to California, no place on the base. We had to go to the coast, Costa Mesa, and our belongings were shipped out, and we got them at the base, material officer. And among them was Ricky's fire wagon. He was delighted because he had his fire wagon all the way to California. And we were near the coast, so it was fog in the morning. I had to drive into the base at El Toro. It was about a 10-mile trip, and the first half of it was being dense fog. But the duty there was not bad, except they made me S4, that's material officer, and I'd never done that. That's supply officer. And I had to inventory all kinds of stuff. The worst part was inventory thousands and thousands of electronic parts in the radio repair van. There we had good friends in the church in Santa Ana, where we had been before in World War II. We sort of enjoyed it there, but we never moved down to that trailer park until my tour of duty was up, and we headed home. It was for some reason it was a lot easier going home, except Pauline was pregnant for Corrine.
Oh.
She was going away to war baby. So Mother Nature works. And we hit some awful roads. We decided to go by the way of Louisiana and visit my sister. Awful roads, up and down, bounce, bounce, bounce. So that trailer was going down, the back of the car was going up and down. And we were going up and down like we're on a rough sea. We made it all right. And stopped at my sister's place. And they lived in call it a shack, it wasn't not much. And they thought that travel trailer was a mansion. All those kids thought it was a mansion.
Whose place was this again? Your sister?
It was my sister Violet's place in Lloyd Stratton. So we made it back to Lakeland, Florida. Parked the trailer in a vacant lot across from her mother's house. What to do? Grandma Jones says, I'll sell it. I'll sell it for you.
Uh-huh.
And she did. She sold it for almost as much we paid for it.
Then where did you go from there?
Then we went back to Michigan
Went back to Michigan, and the people that were in your house, you just
and back into our house
okay.
because the people had moved on a place to live before that. No job this time. No law, no job. So I called my old friend Tom O'Brien, who by then was a sales engineer. He says, "What's going on with Weltronic Company?" Well, he says they split off another company called Welduction, which only does that high frequency radio frequency heating and heat treating. And they're a company by themselves, and they're doing all kinds of things. They're also doing arc welding equipment. So I went to work at Welduction, which was only a mile or so away from the main company, Weltronic. I went to work at Welduction on the drawing board, designing induction heating setups. It was mostly the cabinets work, and the generator itself. It was 20 kilowatts, and the plate voltage for the oscillator was 10,000 volts. And everything was water cooled. But I'd had good training before, so I was able to handle that all right. But I hadn't been there only a few months, well, only a few weeks. They saw my ability and they made me chief checker. I had to check everybody else's drawings, mechanical drawings included. The machines were they were automation type machines, like they would pick up the part and orient it correctly, drop it into an oil bath, bring it up into the heating coil, and bring it up to a certain temperature, and then drop it into the bath again to quench it. And it had to be done just so, depending on whether they're hardening it or annealing it. So that was sort of interesting work. Then I got into the arc welding end of it. This was during the Cold War, and the company had contracted 4 machines to go to Pratt & Whitney Aircraft Engine Plant in Hartford, Connecticut. And then the staff at Weltronic, I was at Welduction, the staff at Weltronic had messed up the project completely. Nothing worked. The machine was all right. It would function mostly, but the electronics of it would not work. What had happened was that they had quite a staff of engineers, and they were graduate engineers. I think there were 6 or 7 of them. And they had the big long drafting room with the draft tables along each side. You know what it looks like, drawing tables. Now you do it on a computer. And one guy had been to Florida, and he had bought a towel, great big beach towel. On it was the picture of a naked woman. And he had wrapped it around himself and was doing a dance down through between the tables, and the president of the company walked in. He fired everybody in there on the spot. He fired them. He had a sense that they were incompetent and that were messing up this project because it wasn't moving, even though 2 of their engineers and their wives had been sent to Hartford to try to fix the machines. He sent their wives too. They took their wives with them. Big deal. And so the president of the company got me on the phone. Mr. Collins says, Zeller, I want you over here. I need you in the engineering department. And I became assistant chief engineer. And I had all these projects. Now the chief engineer wasn't very smart. He knew hardly anything. So
Here's your rattle, Caleb. You see it? Can you get it? There's your rattle. There you go. What are you saying, Caleb?